when stopped?
I do. I think it's important. I mean, my mother came to this country, and she started a new life, as I said in my opening statement. And I think America is the land of opportunity, but I also think that this land is a land that's governed by laws. We're a republic governed by a democracy, and it's very important that we follow all the laws, just not some of the laws, and the ones that may or may not be politically correct at times. I think that everyone should have the opportunity to come here to the United States to start a better life for themselves, to start a better life for their families. There's at least 3 of us up here with parents who have come from overseas and started that life, as I stated earlier. But again, it's got to be done properly. It's got to be done right. There are instances, we just talked about 3 strikes and you're out, of violent criminals that come over here who are undocumented, who commit a crime, who commit such a heinous act, and they never should have been here in the first place. Maybe it's ugly to call them illegal, but you know what? I mean, there are illegal and legal things that we can, that we're supposed to do and not do. So, that's one of them.
Thank you. Yes, I do support that. I think we have to protect our borders. We have to make sure that people coming in here are here for the right reasons, to do the right thing. My family, I'm first generation American. They all came here to get a job, to work, to make a better living for themselves and for their children. My parents actually brought their brothers and sisters over here as well, but everything was done properly. All the proper paperwork was filed. They were sponsored, and they always took care of themselves. They were always independent. They never were on government assistance. I think that, when the customs issues come up, of course the state police should be involved. They're our highest authority here in the state, and they have an obligation to protect our borders, just like the federal government has the responsibility to protect our borders around our nation. Thank you.
Thank you. As I said before, I'm very proud to have the endorsement of the State Police Association Union as well as IPPO. They understand my commitment to law enforcement. And as far as being stopped and held, part of the Secure Communities Act, it's my understanding, to answer your question, I do support it, is that depending on where they're stopped and where the data and the fingerprints are run, immediately, depending on the technology, that's why we need to do a better job with technology, is actually communicated with ICE, so that if there's someone that is pulled over and held and there's an issue, they immediately stop. So I certainly do support that, and I look forward to providing any resources and all resources as I go forward in the legislature to provide much needed technology to stop these individuals that are here unnecessarily. Thank you. Oh, sorry, do it again. I'll get the format by the end of the night.
So will I.
All right.
Thank you. I don't think that this strategy is a good idea, and I want to tell you specifically why. So the question asked was, should a state trooper stop a person who may not have committed a crime but happens to have immigration status issues? We need to separate crime from immigration status issues. The federal government is charged with immigration policy. And if you talk to a lot of police officers, they don't want to be in charge of the federal government's mission to regulate immigration policy. Their job is public safety, and we need to be specific. If a state trooper stops a criminal, whether they're legal or illegal, they should have to follow the law, and they're in charge of that responsibility. But it's actually going to increase crime if we cause people who have questionable legal status to be in a position to be scared to talk to their local police officer or their state trooper to report a crime, to report domestic abuse, to report drug, any type of crime, because then they're going to see that as an immigration officer and not crime prevention. Thank you.
I support our participation in the Safe Communities Act. I want my law enforcement agencies talking to each other. We learned that lesson on 9/11. So if a state police officer stops an individual for an infraction, which is my understanding of what has to be the first level of it, and then that officer has reason to believe that the person is undocumented, he or she passes that information on to the Homeland Security, and then within 48 hours they let the state police know whether they want that person detained or not. I think that's important. I also think that it's time for us to take some steps, like others of all parties talk about, in terms of making sure that undocumented people don't get driver's licenses if they're not entitled. But I want to make this point again. The vast majority of people who are here, who are immigrants, qualify and comply for those rights. And we shouldn't scapegoat everybody who's an immigrant. We need to make sure that if someone's undocumented and they're not entitled to participate in our programs, that they can't.
I would answer yes to this question. I think our state police ought to be able to refer release to proper federal authorities. If a state trooper pulls a person over who is guilty for other federal crimes, pulls over someone who is running guns or distributing drugs, you can bet that state trooper is going to refer him to federal authorities. Likewise, if you're traveling in a foreign country and local police officers pull you over, if you're guilty of a federal crime, you can bet they're going to refer you as well. It's very important. Our police and our federal authorities need to work together. It's vitally important. If you want to see what goes on with places that don't control immigration, I mean, we need to look only to places like California. They have cities and indeed entire counties filing for bankruptcy, in no small part because of criminal activity like this. It's something I don't want to see happen here in Massachusetts. And this is not anti-immigrant. My own parents are immigrants, like I said. I welcome them with open arms. Come in here, follow the rules, pay your taxes, and get a job if that's what you want, and welcome with open arms.
Thank you. I voted for the Secure Communities Act, and I also co-sponsored legislation that requires that when an individual applies for a license, that they be required to show proof of residency and proof of citizenship. And I co-sponsored that primarily as a matter of safety, to ensure that those individuals that are applying for a license are able to understand the rules of the road and are able to drive in a safe manner. And I think that we've had circumstances where that has not been the case, and we've had tragic accidents. So I look at this as a public safety issue. I think I agree with everyone that we need a clearer, more direct path to citizenship. But to me, I view this as a matter of public safety.
Thank you. Our next question, Mr. Magley. Kelly, you will be starting. Someone mentioned that you all have children. I don't know you personally, so I'll try to phrase this question properly. Do you or would you send your children to public schools? Why or why not?
Yes, I would. I have a son that's in the 2nd grade in Golden Hill, daughter at Haverhill High School. I'm very proud of our public school system here in Haverhill. That's why I ran for the school committee. I'm currently the vice president, and I think we're moving in a very positive direction. We have a high school that is second to none. I believe it's one of the finest in the state. And I believe in public education, because I think public education brings a lot to the person. I think that it helps develop the whole person because of the diversity of the people in the schools. And I encourage my children to participate in programs at the schools, to be part of Little League, soccer, hockey, all the other local sports and activities. There's more to education than just the books. And it makes you, and it brings the whole family as part of the community when you're part of a public school environment. We have a long way to go in our public schools. We have to make sure we keep up with the standards. A community like Haverhill, as diverse as it is, has a lot of issues, but we are overcoming them. And I believe that my children and other students in the schools will be better off for it. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think I need a minute to answer this question. As I mentioned earlier, I serve on this is my 9th year on 3 terms on the Haverhill School Committee, and I've actually served as vice president and president. Very proud of that record of accomplishment. More important than that, I'm very proud of my 2 wonderful children that do extremely well in the Haverhill Public Schools. We have fantastic teachers throughout our district. We certainly have work to be done. There's no question about that. Every urban setting, every urban district has their challenges, but we face them. I certainly commend my opponent for his work as well, but we work very, very well, collectively, cohesively, with the superintendent. to get the job done. We're moving in the right direction here in Haverhill, and I can't say enough about public education. I support it a great deal, and my kids are a living testament to that. Thank you so much. Oh, sorry.
I don't actually have kids at the moment, but it doesn't change how I feel about the importance of public education. I'm the product of a public education, and I'm very proud. I feel like I was equipped to go to a college, and then I'm the first person in my family to go to law school. But I will tell you that when I went to Burlington High School, we had Latin, we had a sports program where the students didn't have to pay athletic fees. Children were able to utilize the bus system without additional fees. And that's not the case anymore. So I think that there's plenty of work to be done so that our students can compete in a very competitive economy. I'm very proud to have the endorsement of the Mass Teachers Association and the American Federation of Teachers. And I think that I got that endorsement because I'm truly committed to the hard work that's required to maintain standards so that people don't opt out of a public education, because that's just a formula for disaster for allowing for a very high quality and accessible system for all of our students in the district. Thank you.
I would be proud to send my two sons, Michael, who is 3, and Thomas, who is 1, to the public school system. I'm a product of Amesbury High School. I know that some of my teachers there will probably report to you that they'd rather have seen me going to private school at times, but I had the pleasure of going to Amesbury High. I learned a lot there. I had a lot of great mentors, a lot of great teachers. You know, one of the issues, besides just discussed, back when I was in high school too, we didn't have busing fees, we didn't have user fees, and it was nice. We did have user fees. Actually, the user fees were implemented when I was a junior at Amesbury High School. And I can tell you right now, it's more and more difficult, I think, for kids to get involved in sports. And without sports, I wouldn't have been, the opportunities for me just wouldn't have opened up. I think we need a good balance between athletics and academics. And I think we need to do that by looking at ways in which to revise, restore local aid, lower our property taxes, and give folks the ability to be able to get their kids involved in many sports and athletic and extracurricular activities as they possibly can to round their educational experience fully. Thank you.
The answer is yes. I would send my kids to a public school, and in fact I did. I'm a product of the Woburn Public School system myself. My two sons, Anthony and Nicholas, went to the Page Elementary School and then graduated from Patriot High School. I think it's a great system, and I'm obviously not alone. It's one of the reasons why our property values are as high as they are, is because people want to live in this district, just like I did. It's one of the reasons why I chose to live here, because it's an excellent school system. It has given me the opportunity to meet many teachers in the Pawtucket system, and every single one of them that I met is a hardworking individual. They care about their students, and I would have my kids go there again in a heartbeat. It's something that works. It's something I believe in. I donate a lot of time and effort to the schools, probably donate more to the schools than any other organization, because it's something that myself and my family have always agreed on, something we've always believed in. So, would I send them to that school again? Absolutely, I would do so in a heartbeat.
I have a 15-year-old daughter who goes to private school. That doesn't change the fact that I'm a big supporter of public schools. I have the Mass Teacher Association endorsement. My daughter was born 3 months premature and is quite a miracle, actually. And we found that large class size was not conducive for her. She went to private school after elementary school and is now doing very well in school. She's a beautiful child. But I think what that symbolizes is that everybody has to make their own choice for their own family. I think we need public schools that are available for people that will fix the issues that are wrong with public education right now. One of them is we need to make our buildings safer and more conducive to modern education. Number 2, we need to support our teachers. The legislature made significant changes in the pension plan for new teachers. The retirement age is down. The number of years they get considered in the final pension is expanded to 5 years. But I am a big supporter of public schools and bullying policies. I have visited the Pawtucket School Committee and the Triton School Committee to talk to them about improving the bullying policies.
Thank you. In addition to 8 years of military service, which I had the opportunity to pursue through the University of Massachusetts Amherst and their ROTC program. I bring a deep commitment to public education because I think public education is the glue that holds our country together. It holds our communities together. And it is also, I believe, what Jefferson was pointing to when he talked about opportunity and equality for all. And I think that our public schools are where that all starts, and it provides an opportunity for folks throughout our country. I do think that we need to expand the opportunities in our schools for after-school programs. I believe that we pay so much for these schools as a community that these schools should be used throughout the day and throughout the evening. They belong to everyone in the community. And there is a tremendous need in families to expand these opportunities after school. Doesn't have to be paid for by the government. It can be an opportunity for private sector to step in and offer programs that utilize these wonderful institutions and buildings after school.
Thank you. We have time for another question. There are many of us, probably in this room as well, who think the environment has really gotten short shrift through most of the debates. And there are citizens in the room who've suggested that there are problems with the Merrimack River and other water sources that are in the communities that you will be seeking to serve. Do you agree or disagree that there are issues with the Merrimack River and other water sources in your district? If you do, what would you propose to help with cleanup, with making them healthier? You decide. Mr. Tui, would you like to begin?
Thank you. Well, I do think there are certainly issues that we need to address, similar to the dredging issue that's going up in the Salisbury Plum Island area. I would work with Senator Tarr and the like with the Merrimack River Beach Alliance, which is consisting of federal, state, and local individuals, and work very, very hard with that group, to not just to name one, to make sure that our rivers and streams and our oceans are clean and acceptable. We have wonderful oceans and rivers throughout the Merrimack Valley. It's a beautiful location, and I've grown up at the beach in the summers, and I'm going to do everything I can to provide the proper resources to make sure that we have clean rivers and oceans that are now beautiful, but they can be improved upon. Thank you. I figured it out.
The Merrimack Valley has this treasure, which is the river, and it's the cleanest it's ever been in a very long time, but we know that we can do better. And a big part of that solution is upgrading our wastewater treatment facilities all along the river. Newburyport had the benefit of doing that, and we also need to make sure that the non-point source pollution from the grates and the water that runs down our streets also is addressed. And by background, I'm an environmental attorney, but here's where I want to make the case where I'm the only candidate running for state senate who is in a position to actually chair a committee. And Senator Bador, who chaired transportation, was able to deliver a lot of resources to our district. And I'm the only person in this race for state senate who can actually caucus with the majority party and pass legislation. I cannot emphasize enough how critical that is to making a difference on an issue such as improving the water quality of the Merrimack River. Thank you.
I think it's only critical if it isn't the Democratic majority that hasn't done so much damage in the state for a long time. So, to be honest with you, I think it's time for a strong independent in the state. With respect to the Merrimack River, I grew up on the Merrimack River, and I can tell you from experience, I remember when the pogies were floating up and down dead in this river, and it was really in a sickly state. The river has been the cleanest it's ever been in generations. I hear stories of other folks that grew up and down the river. They can talk about the blue and red dyes coming out of the different mills and hat factories and so on and so forth, the manufacturing facilities up and down the river. When I was a kid, my dad and mom used to shoo me out of the river when I was out there wading along the shore banks. because every single time I'd come out, I had an earache. Now people are swimming in the river, they're enjoying the river, they're jumping off High Rock down in Salisbury behind Monadnock Road. I think it's an important resource that we really need to pay attention to, but I think we're doing a terrific job in maintaining it and keeping it clean.
Thank you. The Merrimack River is key to the whole economic development of all the towns that abut it. I know here in Haverhill we have approval for a dock system downtown, so we're going to be looking for it as a big attraction to bring people to our downtown. And you just look at what's going on in Newburyport, Amesbury, all these other communities in this district that feed off the river. So of course it's a priority. We want people using the river for all kinds of activities. There is a problem in there, although I think that over the years, nature has done a lot of the cleanup for us, and I think we have to let nature continue to do the cleanup. I mean, when you talk to people that used to work at the paperboard or at all the dye factories, and like you said, the hat factories, you hear horror stories of things that used to be dumped in the river. But it's been a long time now. We have the Clean Rivers Act. Things are going in the right direction. And just a comment about Ms. I's comment that she could chair. She's trying to put herself out as an independent, yet she's saying she can go in and chair in the party. If you're an independent within the party, I don't know if the rest of the party is going to support you for a chair. Thank you.
The clean environment is a nonpartisan issue, although I'll take issue with Mr. Kelcourse. When Governor Dukakis was being criticized by George Bush for the Boston Harbor, what the governor didn't do was say that he had taken the federal funds and the state money for clean water programs and had put the money into wastewater treatment throughout the state. Our rivers and streams in Massachusetts went from basically you couldn't fish or swim in any of them to more than 80% of the rivers and streams being fishable and swimmable. The things that these folks just talked about in terms of the improvement and the change didn't just happen. It happened because a Democratic governor and a Democratic legislature put a lot of money into environmental protection and improvement. And I would continue to do that. I would create funding for the wastewater treatment facilities, but also for CSOs. Haverhill and Lawrence need more support for combined sewer overflow improvement, and as we can continue to do that, we will continue to see improved water quality. But this is a nonpartisan issue we all can support.
I have to agree, this is a nonpartisan issue. It's something we should all be concerned about. Merrimack is a treasure, and clean air and water is something we should all, of course, aspire to. It's something we should all be concerned with. Like Sean, I met with Bruce Tarr. I went with him to some meetings of the Plum Island Foundation. He brought us up to date, up to speed on what's going on there and how we're going to fix our issues at the end of the river. But of course, we need to be concerned about what's going on upriver. When I lived in Groveland, I worked on the Conservation Commission. It was something I was happy I did, and I learned quite a bit. I did it because it's something I believe in. Government has to be there to protect the environment. We cannot rely on private businesses to do that themselves. They'll never be able to police themselves. We need government to be there to make sure that those laws are being enforced. It's something I believe in, and it's something we all need to be concerned about.
What's more important than clean drinking water? I'm here because, in public service, because I started off opposing a gas-fired power plant along the Merrimack River, and then became publicly involved in other issues after that. We succeeded in preventing that plant from locating along the river, draining approximately enough water every day to service the city. That being said, I spend quite a bit of time, it's a passion of mine, with Congresswoman Zongas on this particular issue. The Lowell treatment facility needs to be upgraded immediately because of overflow during severe rain. And the other issue that we need to study carefully, and I'm working with Congresswoman Zongas on this, is what happens north of the Massachusetts border. We've already seen some issues with that in terms of the discs that we had floating down the river not too long ago. So that we need to ensure the quality of our drinking water, and we need to begin to work with New Hampshire immediately.
Unfortunately, we have run out of time for more questions. I do want you to know that all but one question came from the audience. We all of us in the room appreciate the thoughtfulness of the questions asked, and we certainly appreciate the thoughtfulness